In Zen, we talk about there are three essential elements: great faith, great courage, great question. So today I'd just like to talk a little bit about courage. And if you look in our Compass of Zen book, it talks about great courage, like great effort, having your energy concentrated on one point. Just, and that's important. But also my experience though is that courage is also greater than that. It took courage for Sanji Sini to stay on at sutra school. We call it Kangwon in Korean, even though she wanted to leave many times and it was difficult. It also took courage to actually tell someone that you want to leave. Usually we think of courage as somebody doing something really heroic, like if you're in a battle, then you charge the enemy, or if you see somebody in a river drowning, you dive in, everybody else is like, oh God, they're going to drown together, and you go and rescue the person, and then you become a hero. So usually we think of courage in those terms. Sometimes we think, and that's important to have that kind of, heroic action when it's necessary. But also there is this everyday courage I think we all exhibit. And this everyday courage also enables us to come to practice and come to a place like this to look inside ourselves. The word courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means heart. And originally, the meaning of courage is to tell your story with your whole heart. That means to be open, to have your heart open, to have an open heart, and tell your story. That means let others see who you are. And Su Bong Zen said something very interesting on the first night before we started kyol in his talk, and that really stuck with me. He said it a few times already. He said, we all need to take responsibility for our lives, for what we are, for what we do, and not blame others or other things. And that really hit me, because quite often, if something goes wrong, I'll go, who did that, And I'll look for somebody to blame or something to blame. And I realized nothing to do with them or nothing to do with that thing. It's me. But we have this habit of not really taking responsibility. But we need to have the courage to do that, to take responsibility for ourselves and for our actions and our behavior. So that's kind of like this ordinary, I like to think of it as ordinary courage in the moment-to-moment daily life that we decide to be open, like to admit that we need help, to admit that we made a mistake, to be the first one to say, I'm sorry. Because we're not perfect. And also admit that sometimes you try and you fail. And it's okay to fail, because you learn from your failures and you try again. So I watched this very interesting, some time ago, very short TED talk by there was this Indian guy who was doing some really high-level research at MIT in the States. MIT is the top technology university in the States. And then he went home to India to visit a friend who was a doctor. And this doctor at that time was delivering a baby in a village. And he had to wait to see his friend. Then his friend came out and was really very gray-faced. They said, what happened? He said, oh, the mother and the baby died. They said, what happened? He said, she lost blood. This is a very, very common thing, very risky thing for women when they give birth. It's called postpartum hemorrhage. That means when they give birth, then they bleed too much. They lose too much blood, then they die. But it's actually a very easy thing to treat, because first they can check the blood of the mother to see if she's anemic. That means she has not enough red blood cells. And if she doesn't have enough red blood cells, they give iron tablets and then give birth. It's okay. But the test for this doesn't exist in these Indian villages because they're too far away from the city. You know, it's a very simple, cheap test, but the equipment is not there, the medical technician is not there. So he thought, okay, this is a problem I can solve. If I solve this, I can save a lot of lives. So he got together with this friend, a doctor, and another person, and decided, we're going to build a medical device that doesn't require blood tests, no pinpricks, and is portable, that can test whether these pregnant mothers have low red blood cells. Then we just give them iron tablets, and then they'll be okay. They'll survive childbirth. Because see, the risk of death is about 25%. 1/4 of mothers die during childbirth in India. So they built this, so he's there on this TED stage, you know, telling everybody, like hundreds of people. So we built this machine, then it didn't work. You know, that when he said, we built this machine, everybody, yeah, clapping. Then he went, but it didn't work. Then everybody, oh. Then he said, then we went back and we built it again. We made it again. Then everybody went, great. Then it didn't work. He had to rebuild this, they had to make this machine 33 times. They failed 32 times before eventually they managed to get it to work. Can you imagine? 32 times they failed, but they kept going. Then when he said that, then everybody, wow, gave him a standing ovation. But that's just the amazing thing of courage, that you're willing to endure failure until eventually you succeed.